Today's conversation is with Brittany Packnett Cunningham. She is an author, activist, thought leader, all of these different titles. But most importantly, she's someone who uses her platform to uplift others. We're going to talk to her today about her start, all the things that she's learned, and what we can do moving forward. All right, Brittany, let's start with a little bit about you to get this thing started. BET called you one of the fiercest activists of our time. You made Political's most influential list, Marie Claire's 50 most influential women, Time Magazine's 12 new faces of Black leadership, and the list goes on and on. What moment in your career thus far are you most proud of?
All of those titles are so weird to me, by the way, because I didn't expect any of it. I'm grateful for all of it, but I just set out to try to do good work for my people. I honestly think that a career highlight for me was, this is so terrible that I never get asked this question and I don't think about it enough. So last year, I did some really quiet work that I really haven't talked much about, but I worked with BET in the background of things on their COVID relief fund. And it was, thus far, we've raised about $20 million. And I was able to work alongside them in the United Way to get the money directly into the hands of Black people, which took a lot of doing because, philanthropy is a difficult space and there are so many restrictions about where money can go, what kind of tax status you have to have, how established you need to be. And so setting really rigorous requirements for nonprofits that were doing, that were giving direct mortgage payments, rent payments, cash, that were doing direct testing, that were giving people educational equipment. We prioritized those. And then we told those folks, you actually have to show us that you are serving Black people. Like, we need numbers to show us that you're not just out here in the community, whatever that means, that you are directly serving Black people. And so in a time when we were being hardest hit economically and medically by this pandemic, I feel really proud that I was able to help be a part of a larger puzzle to help our people survive. So yeah, all of those awards I'm really grateful for, but the most meaningful moments to me are when I can actually say I made a real impact in the places that I care about.
I mean, that's always a tough thing, right? Is like when you make donations, when you do philanthropy, like where do the dollars actually go? And I think a lot of times doing the work to make sure that however much you're donating is going to the right hand. So I think that is huge. We saw a wave of protests this summer that I think one day will be in our history books. Mm-hmm. But none of this is new for you. You were one of the most prominent members of the Ferguson uprising. Why is protesting essential? And as someone who was consistently on the ground, with a protest in the summer of 2020 different?
Protest is essential because it is a reclaiming of people power. And wherever there are people, there is power. Like you said, the Ferguson uprising itself was an historic time. A lot of people may recall one or two moments that they saw on mainstream media, but what is true of that time is thousands of people from all across St. Louis and the Midwest engaged in over 400 days of direct social disciplined action. So that actually makes the Ferguson uprising the longest direct social action campaign in this country's history. It's longer than the Montgomery bus boycott. Part of the length of that was because Michael Brown Jr. was unfortunately not the only person that was killed by St. Louis area police in that year. In the 6 months that followed, the police killed 6 more people like Von Derek Myers. And so I find myself grateful for how young people in Ferguson, any of whom could be sitting here having this conversation with you, really, as my friend Stephen Bradley says, saved American democracy and reminded us of our responsibility as citizens to hold systems of power to account. And so protest is all about creating pressure. Dr. King, when he wrote that letter from a Birmingham jail, was responding directly to white clergy who said, you need to go home, right? Birmingham is not where you're from. Don't come over here and stir up any trouble. We got good Negroes over here, right? They follow the rules. We don't want any outside agitators. We've heard that word before. And so what he said to them was, he said, I am here because injustice is here, right? And we should all be ready to stand up wherever injustice is. Those same folks were telling him to wait until you get to the table of negotiation, and then you can negotiate for your rights. Well, I don't feel like negotiating with white supremacy, because white supremacy is not interested in my humanity. I'm not interested in negotiating my humanity with anybody. And what he reminded those clergy in that letter is that nobody will come and sit down at the table with me unless I pressure you to do so. So he talked about creating the crisis that actually forces power structures to answer, to respond. So when you fast forward to this past summer, we have to recognize that it took a global movement and over 9 minutes of videotape filmed very courageously by a young woman, and Black and white eyewitnesses who were willing to take the stand in order to force 12 jurors and a judge and a state attorney general to do the right thing. That's how much pressure had to exist in the system for one conviction of one police officer. And so protest certainly raises awareness, but even more so, protest and direct and disciplined action really helps create pressure so that folks who have the power of the pen and the power of policy are forced to pay attention. That's why it has to be sustained. That's why it can't be episodic. That's why it has to be organized. That's why it has to be disciplined. But most certainly, it has to exist. Otherwise, America wouldn't be America, and we wouldn't be able to access the rights that we deserve.
Now, you just touched on it, but obviously a few days ago, Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all charges for the murder of George Floyd. But almost at the exact same time that the verdict was being read, police officers shot and killed Ma'Khia Bryant, a 16-year-old Black girl in Columbus, Ohio. Does this guilty verdict change anything in your mind?
No. And I know that is jolting for some people to hear. The only thing that it may have changed, and I can't say this because I'm not a member of George Floyd's family, but it may have given them a tiny bit of closure. But what we have to recognize is that 99% of police officers who kill Black people are not ever charged, let alone convicted. And that's not hyperbole. That's not me being like, well, almost all, no, 99%, right? Less than 1% of police officers who kill a Black person are ever charged or convicted. The other thing we have to realize is that an abolitionist framework requires us not to just be concerned with accountability after someone is dead, but to be concerned with the systems that kill somebody in the first place. So I don't want to see more cops go to jail because I don't want there to be more trials. And I don't want there to be more trials because I don't want the police killing anybody anymore. And so we're never going to find true justice in a place that only allows for accountability. We're never going to find true liberation inside of a courtroom after somebody has already taken their last breath. Families deserve closure. They deserve accountability in whatever ways this current system allows them to have. But we have to keep our eyes on the ultimate prize, which is dismantling a system that is fatal for so many of us. We should all be deeply disturbed by the idea that a supposedly democratic institution that derives its power from the people, whose salaries and budgets are paid for by our tax dollars, takes it upon itself to declare who lives and who dies, right? From a fundamental standpoint, whether you are a white, Black, Asian American, Pacific Islander, whether you were born here or you immigrated here, whether you are able-bodied or disabled, whether you are LGBTQ or not, it should bother you that a government institution is playing judge, jury, and executioner in our name. That is an anti-democratic idea. That is an anti-democratic principle. So whether somebody is armed or not, doesn't matter. Whether somebody was in the commission of a crime or not, doesn't matter. If you can find a way to take Kyle Rittenhouse and Dylan Roof alive, then you can find a way to make sure Ma'Khia Bryant does not end up dead when she was trying to defend herself in a stand your ground state like Ohio. So we have to get to the place where we are bothered enough by the police killing anybody to demand a fundamental change in the system and not just a single conviction.
You know, James Baldwin said that to be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. Do you resonate with those words? And if so, how do you harness that rage to do something productive?
You know, the second part of that quote, he goes on to talk about how living, really living, is about figuring out how to live with that rage, but find joy anyway, to paraphrase him. And that's really what I do. I recognize that Black joy is an act of resistance, that this idea that we can create and dance and sing and find community and find love and find family and build our own institutions in the very last place where we should be allowed to do any of that. That is radical. That is beautiful. That is where I derive my strength. I look at my ancestors, many of whom were enslaved, some of whom died for this country in the name of this country. And I recognize that their sacrifices is what allows blood to flow through my veins. So what I owe to them is to build a beautiful family. What I owe to them is to be able to rest and relax. What I owe to them is to be able to find joy and create joy for other people. And so there is always plenty to be angry about when you are living in this skin, as you already know. And yet, I look at just how brilliant Black people are and how creative we are and how innovative we are. There is literally nobody on the planet like us, right? I mean, we make Twitter funny, right? We make your clothes cool. We make your liquor company pop. We set the trends all over the world. There's nobody like us. And our ability to take the very worst and make beauty out of ashes is, to me, that is a divine gift. That is a divine talent. So I don't take lightly Black joy. I don't take Black creativity and Black happiness and Black smiles for granted. And I think that the more we can center ourselves in our divine right to rest and to joy, the better off we will be, even while it sits alongside that rage.
There's no question about it that, you know, we are the culture. So
period.
That is that. In your words, misogyny and racism are inseparable, and that is a fact. Black women have been at the center of every civil rights movement in this country, but historically, we've never done enough to acknowledge the central role that they play.
No.
You consistently use your platform to acknowledge and elevate the voices of Black women like Cori Bush, Ayanna Presley, Raquel Willis, Opal Tometi, and so many more. What can Black men do more to support Black women and to support a feminist movement?
Harrison, this is the best question. Okay, you got your pen and paper. First things first is to love on the Black women in your own life. There are so many times when we feel so little protection out in the world. If we cannot feel that safety and that protection and that freedom when we come home, then it constantly eats away at us, right? And you are an incredibly dedicated husband and friend and brother. And so I know that you take your responsibility to Black women really seriously, and that's where it begins. I think the second thing to do is to recognize that Black women are people. Black cis women, Black trans women, Black girls, we are people. So this common phrase that says, well, would you want somebody to treat your sister that way? Or would you want somebody to treat your daughter that way? That's good, but go a little further. Because does she have to be somebody's daughter for her to matter? Does she have to be somebody's sister for us to want to protect her? There's a history in this country of us treating Black women, as Zora Neale Hurston said, like the mules of the world, that we are supposed to care for everyone else, that we are supposed to raise other people's children and our own, that we are supposed to mother both our homes and democracy, and that somehow we are strong enough and brave enough to handle it all. So people will give a Black woman a high five while they see us drowning and say, well, she's strong, she's got it. Treat us with care. Treat us with tenderness. Treat us with softness. It is difficult and taxing and draining to walk through the world with the shield up all the time. And that's what we have to do. Ma'Khia Bryant is a tragic example of this. She called the police for protection and instead they killed her. Right? So where do we go for protection? Where do we go for safety? If it's not you, then you have work to do, right? If it's not your church, your mosque, your synagogue, then you've got work to do. If it's not your school or your workplace, then you've got work to do. If it's not your home, then you've got work to do. The last thing is to actually share the burden with us. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, Black men, non-Black people, everyone will come to a Black woman when they are in trouble. When you need us to fix your company, when you need us to fix your country, when you need us to fix your voting rights, when you need us to discipline your child, when you need us to care for you, actually share the load with us because we show up for everybody. And if people actually showed up for everybody with us, and better yet, also showed up for Black women, we wouldn't be quite so tired. Our backs wouldn't be quite so broken. This is the question. I believe that if we do right by Black women, we'll do right by everybody. That economically speaking, if you set policies that work for Black women, they'll work for everybody. If you set social policy that works for Black women, everybody will benefit. There is no reason why we should continue in this day and age to be the mules of other people's world when we have rest and luxury and love that we should still have space to give to ourselves and to one another. So I love this question, and I wish more folks were asking it, because if you do right by Black women, we'll do right by you. And if you do right by Black women, everyone will win.
No, I definitely agree with that. With having a wife, a mom, a sister, I witnessed day in and day out, every day of my life, the strength of Black women, not only in my home, but outside of it as well, all the support that has gotten me literally alive until this point today. So I echo all of those sentiments. In your 2019 TED Talk, you said some powerful words that have stuck with me. You said, confidence is a necessary spark before everything that follows. I, of course, work in a space where confidence is everything. Mm-hmm. It is quite literally the difference between failure and success day in and day out.
Yeah.
I'm a veteran these days in the locker room, and good vets instill confidence in their rookies. So what are your secrets to instilling confidence in others?
So confidence, I like to remind people, is not a nice to have, it's a must have. In that TED Talk, I think a lot of people were surprised that I decided to talk about confidence, but I do believe that it is a necessary seed for everyone. And we should see it as a crisis for all of us if the solutions to our most intractable problems are locked up in the brain of somebody who is not confident enough to share them because they've been discouraged from being confident. So many of our spaces discourage certain people, Black folks, women of color, from being confident. And that is a loss, that is a material loss to everyone. So I think that there are some building blocks of confidence. One of them is certainly community, right? When you talk about people coming to you to help instill confidence, they're coming to you as part of their village. They're coming to you as somebody who they need to hold up a mirror and remind them that if you did this hard thing before, you can do more hard things. To come back to remind people of like who the F they are, right? That there is an opportunity for all of us to build up confidence in someone else and be that circle in that community when people need it. We can also approach people with a lot of curiosity. It is really easy to be in positions of power over people as a parent, as a teacher, as a team leader, as a veteran on a team, and to berate somebody when they make a mistake. But mistakes are actually an opportunity for growth and for learning. And if everyone around you treats them like that, then instead of your confidence being broken because you feel like you failed, your confidence will increase because you'll have better insight for how you do it the next time. Nelson Mandela said something that I try to live my life by. He says, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And if we encourage that kind of curiosity in people, it gives them the opportunity to learn from things and not see them as failures, but see them as opportunities. The last thing that I'll say when it comes to encouraging confidence is to make sure that we're checking ourselves about our biases, about what confidence should look like. So you might call a white man in the boardroom confident. And if a Black woman acts the exact same way, you'll call her aggressive, right? If a woman of any color acts the same way, you'll call her a word that nobody should call a woman, right? It is easy for us to live into these kind of default biases that we have where we don't even realize them, because some people's confidence makes us more uncomfortable than other people's confidence. So we really need to examine and interrogate how we are building space so that everyone can actually be confident. You know, we've got spaces where any of us will treat some people poorly because they're acting in their confidence and encourage other people. So there's always an opportunity to step back and say, am I encouraging confidence in everyone, or am I picking and choosing who gets it? Do I support this child more in being confident than I do this one because I think they're too willful, right? Do I encourage this employee in being confident, but discourage this one because I feel like they're questioning my authority? When we get over our own ego, we can be reminded that everyone deserves to be confident in who they are. And again, when everybody is confident, we all materially benefit.
So I see in your background, you have a lot of books. I know that you're an avid reader.
Yeah.
Your book, We're Like Those Who Dream with One World, is set to hit shelves this year. Mm-hmm. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
And second of all, who are your literary heroes and how have they affected this book?
Oh my gosh, so many. So the book itself is a mixture of speeches by Black women in history that really have become like a second Bible for me. That when I put down Proverbs, I go and pick up Shirley Chisholm, because all of it gives me wisdom to move forward in the world, especially for times like these. And then I've mixed in some of my own personal essays, kind of reflecting on those words and on times in my life when those words really mattered. So gosh, I have so many literary heroes. I think about Lorraine Hansberry, who wrote A Raisin in the Sun, who one of her speeches is in the book, and she talks so critically about having faith in ourselves, even when we don't have faith in systems, and what we can do to transform systems when we believe in our own innate abilities. And she is someone who changed the nature both of literature, but also of theater, right? The deciding that her literary medium with A Raisin in the Sun would be a play. Now we've seen that play live on. And yes, it is about the color line in America. It is about a Black family who decides to desegregate a neighborhood. But more broadly, it is about aspiration and how much we can limit people's dreams based on their identity. And that's a story that needs to be told again and again. Toni Morrison is certainly a literary hero. We took our podcast name from a quote of hers. So the podcast is called Undistracted, but she talked about the fact that the function of racism is to keep you from doing your work. It is to distract you. And we can map that onto anything: racism, sexism, transphobia, Islamophobia. All of that is supposed to distract each of us and keep us from doing our work. It is supposed to make us feel small and incapable and powerless. And you look at somebody like Toni Morrison and the example of her life. And she was never small, right? She never played small to make other people comfortable. In fact, if you asked her to play small, she was going to check you and then remind you what a white supremacist ideal it was that a Black woman play small, that she write about white people when that was not her experience. You know, she would say, did you ask the Russian writer to write about French society? No, you didn't. This is great literature, and I'm writing about Black people with intention. She said, you know, that if you don't see the book on the shelves that you want to read, to go and write it. And I think that that's good advice for writing and for life. So those are two folks that I look to consistently to give me the courage to put pen to paper, because writing a book is very hard, but ultimately worth it.
It's actually crazy. So me doing interviews with people actually started off as articles, like written pieces. That. And one of the first people on my like wish list, like I think she was the second name, was Toni Morrison. This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So she's definitely a huge kind of her thoughts and how she articulated them, and I think how she stirred people's thought processes. Yeah. That's what really kind of led me to really wanted to do this. So she's definitely a hero of mine as well. You're fighting day and night for our community. You're constantly fighting for the most vulnerable populations, supporting our most marginalized. How can anyone listening to this interview support you in your work?
Oh, that's really kind. I mean, you can certainly tune into Undistracted and share it with your people. Give us a rate, give us a starred review. But really, I just need you to go recruit other freedom fighters. Like, that's really what I need people to do. I think ultimately the work is to build the biggest, loudest choir for freedom that we can build, so that we can go into every corner of the earth and make it happen, so that our voices together shake down strongholds. And I'm a church girl, right? So I want our voices to stir up the gift. I want our voices to bring the walls of Jericho tumbling down. And that can only happen when a friend goes and gets a friend, who goes and gets a friend, who goes and gets a friend. I feel like my platform is really to speak and teach truth that moves people to action. And every time I do that, I'm imparting lessons that somebody gave to me, that mentors gave to me, that authors gave to me, that filmmakers gave to me, that friends gave to me. And every time I get a new nugget of knowledge, it's my responsibility to go and pass it on and to go link arms with somebody who gets it and who wants to get it more. So really the way that people can support me and my work is to go do their work and go recruit other people to do the same. Because we got a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to take absolutely all of us doing what we are uniquely positioned to do to make it happen.
I love that. I think one of my favorite things about Black people is our resilience. And in the face of trauma and tragedy over generations, somehow, some way, we still experience joy. Mm-hmm. So I would love to end with asking you this: what brings you joy right now in your life?
Oh my gosh. So my husband and I got married right before quarantine happened. We got married in October 2019. And it's funny because at one point my mom was like, do you all want to wait till the spring? And I'm so glad that we did it, because we would have had no wedding. It was the last hurrah. But we got married in New Orleans, which is our favorite city. We're both from St. Louis, and New Orleans is our sister city. But we got married at this place called Studio B. And our friend B. Mike Odoms, who is an incredible artist, had taken over this massive warehouse and just filled it head to toe with Black art. So you got images of Angela Davis and Bayard Rustin on the walls. You've got quotes, and he's done partnerships with Nike. So you've got an entire kind of artistic basketball court of I don't know if you've been there, but you've got that kind of, So you've got you got that space that's dedicated to the power of sports to create more equity and justice in the world. And we got married in what he calls the Love Supreme Room. So there are these 20-foot portraits of Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King facing each other. And behind them are the words "Love Supreme," and it stretches across the entire room. And the first time we went there together, I was like, we want to get married here. And it was like, so we asked me, we were like, do you do weddings? He was like, not really, but we could figure it out. And so our wedding planner, Fresh Johnson, who was from New Orleans, like she took a really ridiculous vision and made just the most beautiful day of Black art and Black music and Black love and Black joy come alive. My husband's name is Reggie. So together our initials are R&B, which is a very fun thing to discover because we both love 90s R&B music. Like we love R&B music, period. But that era in particular is really special to us. Mm-hmm. So we're at our wedding day. Everybody knows how much we love to sing and dance to R&B music. And it really, no matter what is happening in the world, if I put on some SWV or some Jodeci or some Boyz II Men and we just sing to our heart's content, it makes me feel free again. So on this wedding day, we get to our first dance. First of all, we entered the reception to International Players Anthem, from Outkast and the crew, as good Black millennials would. Mm-hmm. And we go to have our first dance and our DJ is looking at us like, I had forgotten to send the song that we were going to dance to. We were going to dance to a PJ Morton song. So our friends, Major, who is a singer, our friend George, and our friend Ahmed, they literally start stomping and they start singing "Weak" by SWV. Nobody knew that this was our favorite song, right? So there is this 300-person a cappella rendition of SWV's "Weak." And our dance floor was circular. So we're like in the center of it. And just like this choir of our loved ones are enveloping us in this beautiful song that is quintessential 90s R&B. And so 90s R&B brings me joy. Actually, I've got like an early tape of SWV's "Weak" single up there. And I can put on that song and just dance with my husband and float away. So that ultimately it is the ingenuity and creativity and love of Black people. And that song helps me access that.
Well, I think, in the city of New Orleans, in a Black gallery, in a wedding like that, I think that's a very powerful moment that I think anyone could take some joy from. I'm over here laughing, trying to envision, what that first dance was looking like.
I'll send you the video because it was hilarious and beautiful and perfect.
Oh, no, that is great. Brittany, thank you so much, not only for the work that you're doing, but for taking the time today. We definitely look forward to following you and all things that you're doing. Congratulations on your new book. And
thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Well, Harrison, thank you for all that you are doing, for using your platform in really powerful ways. You don't have to do it. There are lots of folks who wouldn't do it. And so we appreciate you continuing to be a voice for our people and for justice in the world and in rooms that we don't get invited into. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you.